Wednesday here at Dom's Corner. I'm your host, Dom Martino, as always, and today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to talk about the Mandalorian. Now, guys, I know I said that we would do a Kingsman review, but I have just not been in the mood to watch Kingsman. I got to be honest with everybody here because, part of the reason I started Dom's Corner was so I can, watch the things that I love to watch and do the things that I love to do. And Kingsman I wasn't feeling it, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. I really was not feeling Kingsman. Sorry if there was a noise just then. I had to adjust this just a tad bit. Hang on one second. Okay, there we go. But I just wasn't feeling Kingsman. I haven't been lately. And, so one of the things that I realize as well is that I personally have never talked about the Mandalorian on this channel, like at all. So I figured today would be a good day to take a in-depth dive on that first season because the second season's coming up right around the corner. And I still have not even spoken about the first season. So that's kind of where I'm at today. I had just binged the first season again a couple weeks ago, and just thought, maybe we could talk about it here. So, I remember when The Mandalorian was coming out, and I used to wake up at like 6:30 in the a.m., and I would have my Mandalorian mornings, and that's what I would watch in the morning before I started my day, and it was just a really great way to start my day. I was tired as hell at first, of course, because I'm not used to getting up that early, but it was just awesome to wake up to The Mandalorian. I'd watch the episode even a couple times before I started my day, and that was an amazing thing to have. I mean, Star Wars had never really gone to TV prior to The Mandalorian. I mean, they had, but with animated stuff. They'd never done live action before. It was always animated with Star Wars, and this is the first time they've done a live action series. So it was a really interesting experiment. And, one of the things is I really like the pilot. So in the first episode, which is directed by Dave Filoni, you do get a real sense for what the show's going to be. I mean, it starts out and you got the Mandalorian and this other guy who, he's just on a mission, on a regular mission. It's like another day in the life of the Mandalorian. That's kind of how the first season starts, and that was something I really admired about the series. Is just kind of, we're just kind of observing this guy, and a lot of the tone reminded me of the original Star Wars films, which I also really admired. I really liked the original, obviously, not just the original Star Wars films, but kind of that tone that we get in A New Hope. That's kind of what I was thinking of when I was first watching The Mandalorian, and I'll never forget that guy who felt a little more Star Trek. I'm not going to lie to you. The guy that he takes hostage, and then you get this big creature that, goes out of the ice, but you're just like, you're watching this guy, and the guy that he takes hostage is saying that he's going to go use the restroom. I can't remember exactly what he calls it in the show, but it's something different in Star Wars land. Like, restrooms aren't called restrooms in Star Wars land, I guess. So, but it is something different in the show, and excuse me. So we're kind of observing all this going down, right? And so when he is going into this bathroom, essentially the Mandalorian, he's already got his number, right? Because he turns around and the Mandalorian's holding the gun up to him, and I just thought that was so cool because it shows you who the Mandalorian is in just one scene in the opening, and it's a really great pilot episode. I mean, we see him go to the cantina. We kind of it kind of introduces Carl Weathers' character, and and kind of the role that he's playing, and how he's the one that's giving Mando the jobs. And we really don't have a name for Mandalorian in the beginning, obviously, but I just thought it was a really, really great pilot, and Dave Filoni really did a phenomenal job directing the pilot episode. And it was really great to let him do it because, Filoni really knows Star Wars. It's evident on Rebels and Clone Wars, and so I just think it was a really, really phenomenal pilot episode. One of the best pilots I've ever seen, and I'm being 100% honest with that. I remember just watching that and going, wow, I got Star Wars in this format, and, had to wait the next week for the next episode, unfortunately. But anyway, so moving on. Mando gets a job from Werner Herzog's character in this, and Werner Herzog is so cool. He has such a strong presence on the screen, and it's him and this like scientist type guy, and we later find out that that guy's kind of into the cloning scene. So the doctor tells him he's got a package that he needs to collect, right? So Mando goes out and does that, and then he meets IG-11, who's this robot, and this robot's just shooting shit right everywhere. And then, oh my gosh, the moment I knew I was gonna love this show was when Mando just hops on that turret though, and just starts taking out motherfuckers, right? Like that was the coolest thing about the show. Was just, you know, I mean, I hate to bog it down to this, but like this episode in particular was just kind of the badassery of it, right? That's kind of all it was about, was just kind of showing Mando's badassery, maybe not fleshing out his personality as much as it does later on, but that's fine because that's not what a show's supposed to do. It's not supposed to give everything away in the pilot. So seeing that kind of badassery coming out of Mando was pretty cool. And then you get there and to the end there, and he opens up this like egg looking thing, right? But it's more like a floating, hovering cradle is what it ends up being, because there's a baby in there, and the baby is, and I think it's a cool reveal for Star Wars fans, but it's the same species as Yoda, and you know, obviously it's not Yoda. This takes place after Return of the Jedi, and that's the other thing I really like about the world that they set up in Mando. You know, is it's all you know, we've never really seen the world, like what did it look like right after the Battle of Endor, right? And after the second Death Star blew up, and after the Empire was not taken out completely, because we still have Imperials in the show and in this timeline, but you know, taken out for the most part. We never really got to see that world, and you know, the world just feels very lived in. It's like a 15-year gap, I think, between Return of the Jedi and this. So we never really got to see that time period, and that's one of the other things that makes Mandalorian so cool is that, I mean, and you know, there's a lot of respect that goes to the creators for the environment that they created, because it's all done on that stage technology, right? The real time rendering, like none of this was done on actual location. The entire show was done on a stage, on ILM stage, and it's really cool how they do the real time rendering for the environment. And you should watch you guys, if you haven't seen it, watch the Disney Gallery, the Mandalorian documentary series, because it really goes into the making of this, and you'll have such an appreciation for what the creators put into it. And even if you're not a fan of the show, that's a really cool, well, nah, it's pretty cool to watch. I mean, it's cool. It's cool to see how they create all this stuff, because, you know, it's a whole new kind of technology that they're playing with, and it's something that George Lucas had predicted, you know, we were going to be doing a long time ago, and I think that's kind of cool. And he was kind of working on some of this type of technology that they used to create the show. But aside from the behind the scenes, a look into this, so you know, the mission was to destroy the child, right? And so IG-11 is about to do it, and you just hear the gunshot, and you just see IG-11 just fall down, right? Instead of the child. The child is not the one that gets killed. So Mando, you know, he doesn't want to kill a baby, right? So he does have morals, which is a pretty good thing to set up. So he ends up killing IG-11. So, which I love that about this episode for sure, and that's kind of where the episode ends. And I'll never forget like seeing the credits roll for the first time on an episode of this. It's because, I mean, it's like they show all this like artwork and concept art that they were, you know, going to use for the episodes, and it's pretty cool because it just gives you an extra insight into the development of this. And when you're talking anything Star Wars, I mean, the development behind it is always a lot of the appeal as well. So you're just kind of getting that extra thing. So I always found that fascinating when the credits would roll and they'd show you the concept art, and it kind of gave you an insight into the process of creating the episodes individually. And then so in episode 2, which this one was directed by Rick Famuyiwa, who I've never seen any of his films. I think he did a movie called Dope or something like that, and I never actually seen it. But I can tell you that, like, from the get-go of this episode, I was already a fan of this guy. Just the way he paced it. There's not... well, there is something that really drives the story forward. But there's this... You kind of run into Jawas again, which is, some nice little fan service in there. And so you run into some Jawas, and they're kind of like, obsessed with this child, and they take the child from Mando, and Mando's going after him. It's just really, episode 2 was just all about the action, man. Like Rick Famuyiwa really just does good with these like action episodes, while also like creating a piece of entertainment that just it still sucks you into the story, right? And so there's just this big action episode. And then I think this is where the Mandalorian runs into Quill, who's played by the great Nick Nolte in the show, and Quill is an Ugnaught who he seems to know a lot, and he's lived a long time, and he's kind of telling the Mando what the Jawas want, and they want this egg to trade for the baby, and the egg is in this cave, and Mando doesn't know much about it, but he's going to do what he can to get this child that he risked his life to grab. So he goes into this cave, and then all of a sudden you just see him get thrown out by this creature. I'm not exactly sure what the creature was, but so anyway, so this creature's just it's beating the shit out of Mando, right? Like, Mando doesn't really stand a chance, I don't think, right here. And obviously Mando's not this guy's real name, but we don't know his name at this point in the series. We do find out at the end, which I'll get into that. We should actually, I'll just say it now, it's a spoiler review. I mean, his name is Din Djarin, and we should probably start referring to him as that. So anyway, so Mando gets thrown out of this cave, and then next, this creature's like literally getting ready to kill him, and all of a sudden you just see the creature just stop, and then just like floats up into the air, and then you see the child. He's using the Force, right? And I was like, oh my gosh! Each episode of this series, it just keeps opening up these elements, to this, and this is really, really great Star Wars, right? Because it's given us whole new characters with a whole new story, but keeping the fundamentals of what makes Star Wars, and I appreciated that. And even new tones, because we got all these different creators coming in to direct these episodes, and even though it's all within Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni's vision for what they wanted to do with the show, we still have all these creators coming in and putting different tones and different spins on what they feel like Star Wars should be. So the entire Mandalorian series, if you ask me, is kind of like one big tribute to what George Lucas had created in the beginning, and I think that's what makes it work. But it's also giving us new stories, new characters. We're getting away from the Skywalkers, and I think that's really what's making this thing work. And it's really the driving force behind it is we want to keep the fundamentals, but we want to do something new, and that's actually pretty amazing, if you ask me. So moving into episode 3, which is directed by Deborah Chow, who I think is my favorite director to step onto this series, because episode 3 is one of the best episodes in the whole damn season. So excuse me. So Deborah Chow's episode is really about Mando's just, I think at this point he's just kind of fed up with the child, and he's like, this has caused me too much trouble so far. I'm just going to take this child back to Werner Herzog, and that's going to be the end of it, right? So he's taking the child back, and it seems to be like there's some big conspiracy in here, like with having to do with cloning with the child, and unfortunately, we still have not really gotten answers on any of that. But I'm hoping season 2, we kind of start to dive into what was going on at this lab. We know that cloning had to do with it, but I mean, where did the child come from? Is he a clone of Yoda, maybe even? Because that would be interesting, even though we're kind of trying to step away from everything. it would be interesting if they had some DNA from Yoda. I mean, they could take things from the source material, which is the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, all the trilogies, all the movies in the Skywalker saga. I mean, they could always take elements from there, and I think it would still be okay. It's just that let's make sure that we're not going too far into nostalgia, right? So that's kind of again the driving force of the show is it's all new, right? So for the most part. And it's a different part of this galaxy that we really haven't seen, but so Yoda, I'm sorry, not Yoda, the child. Even I started calling him Yoda. So the child is back with Werner Herzog in this lab, and this doctor dude who's really a kook. You can tell, or maybe not. Maybe they twist that. Maybe he was really trying to help the child, and who knows? But I'd be really interested to see that in season 2. But Mando gets back on his ship, and it's typical. He feels bad about what he did, and so he's ready to go back. Well, we should actually backtrack because this is where we see kind of the Mandalorian getting his what do they call it? It's armor, but it's something else. I'm blanking on it, so somebody leave that in the comments below. Oh boy, I can't remember. I don't know, armor, whatever. So he's getting his armor, and every time he finishes his job, that's kind of part of it. He gets to go in there and get a new piece of armor, and here we kind of get a look in when he goes down into the underground of the city. We kind of get a look at the kind of the Mandalorian, creed. You know what I mean? The group of Mandalorians that are still left from way back, and because there are still some left at this point, and so I just think it's really cool, kind of how that all works. And it's like Mandalorians, defend Mandalorians, and you find out a lot about that toward the end of this episode when Mando goes back in. He has this mission to go get the child, which I thought was pretty cool, because he just feels he regrets what he did. He was getting ready to leave, and then finally, he just looks back and he remembers that the child, and he thinks it's worth saving, right? So he goes against his way to save this child, and I think that there's a lot of heart within that, right? So he goes and gets this child. He goes on the mission. He gets the child out, and then Carl Weathers is getting ready to stop him. And then I think my favorite moment of the episode, and one of my favorite moments in the entire series, was seeing all the Mandalorians come down to protect this one, right? So or to protect Din Djarin. And so he takes down Carl Weathers, and he flees, and the Mandalorian kind of there's one Mandalorian that kind of sees him off, right? He's flying on the jetpack, and I love the line. He just gives him a thumbs up, looks over, like you're clear, and he Din Djarin is like, I gotta get me one of those. And by the way, Din Djarin, the main character, he's played by Pedro Pascal, who I gotta give a lot of credit to. He does a really phenomenal job on this in this series, and I'll get into like kind of why I think he is really such a good actor when we talk about this next episode, which is episode 4. Now, episode 4 is directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, and I was really nervous to see how she did. And I think she did a really good job within the vision. She paid tribute to Seven Samurai, which was one of George Lucas's favorite films, and this storyline is really what happens in Seven Samurai, right? So Mando takes the baby in episode 4, and he takes him to this other planet who we'd seen had just gotten invaded. So basically, he goes down there, he lands there, and this is where he meets Cara Dune, and he talks to Cara Dune for a little bit, and well, actually, they end up getting into a fight, but then she sees the child, and she's like, well, probably like, this guy must not be so bad, and I think that he either asked her for like a cup of coffee or tea or something like that, and then they connect, and this kind of introduces us to Cara Dune, who's played by the wrestler, or the fighter, I'm sorry, Gina Carano. And she does a really good job on this character, I think. I've seen Gina Carano in other things, and yeah, she's iffy and other stuff, but she does a really good job on the show. You could tell that she really enjoys playing this character. So Gina Carano's talking to Mando, and it's a really... You can see the chemistry right away between these two. And anyway, Mando finally... he's out and about riding at night, and he's... well, the villagers kind of give him a place to stay, right, with the child, and this is kind of where he reveals that he doesn't take his mask off in front of people because the one woman in the village, she I guess she's like the head of the village. She basically tells him, like, when was the last time you took that off? And he says, yesterday. And then she says, no, when was the last time you took that off in front of anybody? He says, I haven't. So he tells he kind of explains this later to Gina Carano too, which I think gives us insight, because she asks him, like, what happens if you take it off? And he says, like, with my people, the Mandalorian and the Mandalorian way, if I take this off, I can't put it back on again, right? So, which I guess makes sense, because, like, Mandalorian is, well, he calls it a creed, right? It is his creed, right? So it's his way. It's the Mandalorian way. So anyway, or this is the way, right? That's kind of the chant that the Mandalorians were saying in the episode prior. So he's talking with Gina Carano a little, or he ends up running into some guys, actually, who ask him to. They tell him about the attack, and they said that they need his help. Which this is the plot of Seven Samurai. And the villagers asking, tougher people for help. And anyway, so the Mandalorian, he trains the villagers to fight, and then this AT-AT comes around. This AT-AT comes around. And then they fight this thing off. It's a really, really cool night battle scene. I think this is where Bryce Dallas Howard really shined. And also developing the relationship between Mando and the... I cannot remember her name, but I guess the head of the village, right? This woman who you think is they're going to get together, and because... You really hear the emotion in Pedro Pascal's voice when he's like, I can't stay here, or I can't take off my mask. I have obligations to my people. And you really hear the emotions in his voice. And that's why I think Pedro Pascal did a really good job in this series, because he's able to give this really emotional performance, but we never really see his face. And I think Pedro Pascal is a wonderful actor. But he tells, this head villager, Gina Carano, that he's going to let the child stay at the village because he feels like he belongs there. Basically, what we end up seeing is somebody come over, and they've tracked the Mandalorian, right? So somebody from the other neck of the woods comes over, and they have this scope over on Baby Yoda, and so basically, he's ready to shoot Baby Yoda, but then you see the guy go down, and it turns out that Gina Carano, Cara Dune, had shot the bounty hunter that was after the baby. So Mando was like, okay, I got to get him out of here, right? So you fast forward to episode 5, which is directed by Dave Filoni. Now, I loved what Dave Filoni did with the pilot. I really do. I think it's one of the best pilots I've seen. I meant that when I said that, but... This episode on The Mandalorian sucks. 100%. Maybe not 100%, but 90% of it really does kind of suck. I mean, okay. We go back to Tatooine, which is great. I like that nostalgia play. I actually liked seeing Tatooine, and we go back to the cantina. This is where he ends up taking the child, right? And we go back to the cantina, but then he has this woman look after the child, and this woman is not a good actress in the show. I don't know what her point was. I don't think she was funny at all. I mean, no, it wasn't good. He lets this woman just keep an eye on the child at the landing bay. You get the sense that he's met this woman before for sure, but he lets her look after the child at the landing bay, which is cool and all, but whatever. She just has a lot of really cheesy lines and really weird lines, and the whole thing going on with her, I didn't really understand. And then moving on, he ends up meeting this guy in this cantina who asks him to do a job with him, and then they go to do his job, and this whole episode's like filler, and then it's like they go to they run to Sand People, which is a big nostalgia play. So whatever, I'm cool with seeing all that again. But then they run into these Sand People, and then they do their job, and then Mando ends up killing this dude. Or I'm sorry, that's not what happened at all. So I lied about that. They do their job, and then Mando ends up, going back, getting the baby, and then, or the guy actually betrays Mando. I'm sorry, while he's on the job. So the guy betrays Mando, or Din Djarin, and then he ends up going back. And I couldn't stand this dude. Everything he said was, "Hey, Mando." It was just ridiculous. This episode was really stupid. So he goes back into. Mando goes back to get the child after he finally takes this dude down. He goes back to get the child, and then, there's this girl that shows up too that they end up just destroying. She was like a big waste of time. So he goes back to get the child, and then the one dude that he met in the cantina, he followed him back there, and then there's this whole thing where he has to like knock him upside the head just to get rid of him. Actually, maybe the lady did that. I don't remember. This episode was really, really dumb. And then they leave again. It's like, okay, go to a planet, take off. What's the show becoming? This is the point where I really started to get worried about the show, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you, because it was really, really great, and then you get to this, it's like, what are we doing? So the first 4 episodes are so good, and then so he takes off, and then we see this guy walking up to one of the dead bodies from the job earlier, and we hear like spurs. He has spurs on his boots. You can hear the spurs going as he's walking, and they never reveal who this was, and I still wonder if they did or not, which I'll get to that in a second. I wonder if it was Moff Gideon at the end, I guess, but we don't know. Maybe it ends up being somebody else that they were trying to tease, for us. We'll see in season 2, but they never really did confirm that was who was walking up with spurs on the boots. So anyway, moving on. So he finally goes out to some guys that he knows, and this makes a little more sense because he wants to help them do a job, and that this actually, it made a lot more sense. He wants to help them do a job, apparently for shelter, and this episode was fleshed out a little bit more. This one was directed by Rick Famuyiwa, and I think that this episode is really, really good. The character that Bill Burr plays is incredible. So they go in, it's this heist episode, right? And again, Rick Famuyiwa does really well with the action in the show. He directs episodes that really just include the action. And he knows how to do that extremely well. So I loved this element of it, and it's action, but it's got some kind of like horror element too. Well, so basically they're going out right on this heist, and basically they end up all pretty much turning on Mando. So it's everything that was like, here's the thing, this is like everything that happened in the episode prior, except it just felt like it had more of a point, and it was so much more well done, and it was something, and we were seeing like a lot of new characters here that were they were acting very, very well. But my problem was with the show is, at this point, is that it just felt like it was the same thing that we'd seen just prior. So this is kind of one of the big issues with the show, is it just had this repetitive nature about it. But I enjoyed the heist element still, and I thought that the acting was really good, and Bill Burr is tremendous in this. This is the first time I really saw him do some real acting, you know what I mean? And he was tremendous, and it's really funny, the story behind that too, because I heard that Bill Burr is not a Star Wars fan, so he just kind of did this to be ironic, and obviously it paid well, but he wanted to. He's a buddy of Jon Favreau's, and he just, Favreau asked him if he'd do it, and he just kind of did it just to be kind of ironic, because he's not a Star Wars fan, but he is a comedian, so that makes sense. But he did a really, really good job, and he really gave it 100%. And I hear he's coming back in season 2. But anyway, so they have to go. It's basically this like heist type feel to it, but they're going to get their buddy, right, who was locked up on the ship or was taken prisoner on the ship. And Mando, and the other thing I liked about this is it really showed the history that Mando had with this group of people. You know, he used to hang out with these guys and everything, and so he knew these people. He had a real history with them. And anyway, so he ends up basically, they end up betraying Mando, and Mando kind of goes after them all. I love the way that this was all done. Like he has to like really use stealth, right, in this to try to get them all, and he gets them all, and it's really, really amazing the way it was done. Like, I like the uses of strobe effects in this episode. I thought that was really cool. When he's coming up behind the guy in the hallway and you just see flashes of Mando behind him. I thought that stuff was awesome. It's amazing once you get to that. So yeah, I love this episode. It's so good. Like, Rick Famuyiwa and Deborah Chow they probably make the best episodes in the whole thing. So, you know, it was just a really cool element to see in Star Wars and something new. And, you know, you see that he has them locked up at the end. Then he goes back, and this is where it gets just really amazing to me. He goes back, he tells them he finished the job, and he's like, all right, and he's like, but I got to get out of here or whatever, so we're flying off again, you know. So there's the repetitive nature of the show, but what I like that they did differently here is that they were like, all right, now kill him. So they send this thing after him, right? And then these X-Wing pilots come up, right? And this is really good nostalgia, because we haven't really seen X-Wing pilots just come up like this, where they're all kind of checking in, like the red 2, red 3 kind of thing, you know. Are you in there? You know, and we're seeing the X-Wing pilots, and one of the cameos I thought was really cool was Dave Filoni was one of the pilots. I think Deborah Chow might have been another one, but anyway, so they're coming up, and they just did a really good job in the scene. Really, again, just giving you the feel from A New Hope at the end, at the Battle of Yavin, right? So it's nostalgia, but it's because they want to keep the fundamentals of what made Star Wars, but it's not like overly fan service, like, right? Because like the stories are all new. So these X-Wings, they fly in, and they end up blowing up this whole base, and I thought that was just really amazing. And you know, so Mando, he takes off. So yeah, Mando takes off, and he's going to another, or we don't actually know where he's going, but so this kind of brings us into episode 7, though, which Deborah Chow once again directed again. And by the way, guys, Deborah Chow's directing the entirety of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, which is really exciting, by the way, so we're in good hands. And her 2 episodes in this season just proved that, and I think she might be doing another one for the 2nd season of Mandalorian too, so I don't know, we'll see. But anyway, so what we end up seeing in this episode of The Mandalorian is that, you know, Carl Weathers' character, Page is back in. He's like, Mando, he's like, you know, you got yourself into some shit, but if you come back, I can work out a deal so you don't have to keep running, Mando. And so Mando was like, all right, you know, I don't like running. And, you know, personally, as the audience, we don't like to see him running. So it really adds this, like, layer of like, okay, we're really starting to get somewhere, right? So Mando, he goes back, but before he does that, he goes and gets Cara Dune, which is smart, and he wants to come up with a plan because he doesn't want the child harmed, and Cara Dune agrees to go with him and help him out, and he also goes and he grabs Quill before this, and Quill reveals that he went back and fixed IG-11 after Mando had shot him, but he reprogrammed him to be like this medic droid, which is really, really cool. I mean, that's just definitely something different, right? So he programmed him to be this medic droid, and I thought the whole sequence there was pretty cool. They use like stop motion animation, which is like something we've never really seen in Star Wars, so that's all exciting, right? So he reprograms this IG-11 guy, and anyway, so they're all, you know, going out there on on these thingamajigs that whatever Quill had him ride. I can't remember what he called them, but I remember Mando being hesitant to learn how to ride one. That was earlier in the season. I just forgot to mention it till now. So, fuck me. But anyway, so so we're riding off. They're all going out to meet Carl Weathers. I can't remember what plan they had actually devised but they devised some plan. So they go to Carl Weathers, and Carl Weathers is like, all right, give me the baby, or something like that. And not the baby. What do you want? I can't remember what he wanted exactly, but oh man. I think that they had convinced Mando that he was going to do a job, but what Carl Weathers actually ends up doing is shooting all these guys behind him. And he's like, no, that's not yet. I'm sorry. So they go out to do this job, and so they're all like at this campfire at this one part, and then this thing comes out, and this like dragon type thing, right? They're all shooting at it, and it ends up like getting Carl Weathers really bad, and then the baby goes over to Carl Weathers and he heals Carl Weathers with the Force. I thought this was really cool because we'd never really seen that on screen. And what was really interesting is that the Rise of Skywalker had come out the day after this episode aired, and in the Rise of Skywalker we also saw that being used. So I thought that was a really cool way to introduce it, and there was a connection kind of there, right? And I also remember at the end of this episode we got like a clip from the Rise of Skywalker that was never before seen, just as kind of a marketing tool. So I kind of like that this episode and Rise of Skywalker, they coincide with one another a little bit in that way anyway. So this is the first time we're ever seeing that in Star Wars, right? So he heals him with the Force, and so that was a new element. And Carl Weathers goes, he thanks the baby and or he thanks the child, and excuse me. So anyway, so they're going back out on the job the next day, and then finally they, I can't remember exactly how this all went down, but finally, Carl Weathers, he shoots all his men, and he's like, so the plan was actually I want to tell you something. The plan was actually to kill you and the child, once we got here. Oh, you know who they're going to meet? They're going to meet Werner Herzog, his character. I don't know how I forgot that element, but that's who they're going back to meet, right? They're going back to meet Werner Herzog's character, but finally Carl Weathers, right before they get there, he shoots all his men down. He's like, the plan was to take you and the child and kill you, or whatever he says, and he's like, but, I he felt sympathy. I really like that because it, puts growth. It shows you that Carl Weathers' character is a good guy, right? He's not all bad. So he's actually a good dude. He's got some kind of moral, right? So then they go to this town where they meet Werner Herzog, and then Werner Herzog's paging somebody, and he's like, "Have you finished the job?" or something like that. And it's who's paging is Giancarlo Esposito's character, and so basically all of a sudden just the shit just hits the fan. Like he goes down, Werner Herzog goes down, and this whole like little restaurant type thing that in the town goes down. Like it's just mass destruction, and you just see all these stormtroopers outside. And then finally this is when we're introduced in the flesh to Moff Gideon. So Moff Gideon gets off a ship, and Giancarlo Esposito is such a presence in here. And Quill was supposed to take I think Mando Din Djarin ends up giving the baby to Quill, right? So Quill is supposed to take the child back to the ship. He's like, take the child back to the ship, right? Once the shit starts hitting the fan. And so he's trying to do that, and then they're all taking cover, right? Because they don't want to get shot down. And Moff Gideon's like, you have something I want. And Giancarlo Esposito is so cool, man. He is so cool in this episode. And he's like, give it to me or whatever. So, and this is actually where we get the name revealed. He seems to know a lot about Din Djarin and all that. But, Din Djarin's paging Quill. He's like, Quill, come in, Quill. Is the baby there safe? And all that kind of stuff. And then, you don't really hear anything from him, but all you see is the speeder bikes, right? Like Quill's going with the speeder bikes, stormtroopers are going after him. It's a whole intense fucking thing, right? So And then the episode ends, and you just see Quill lying on the ground, and oh my god, the sadness that came over me. I'm like, oh shit, that's just kind of where the episode ends. And you're like, I gotta see the next one, right? Okay, so episode 8 was directed by Taika Waititi, who I was actually really nervous about doing this movie. I'm a huge Taika Waititi fan. Like when it comes to everything else he's done. I mean, I love the Hunt for the Wilder People. I love What We Do in the Shadows. I really love. I think his best film actually so far is Jojo Rabbit. That was a really amazing movie. But when it came down to like Thor Ragnarok, I didn't think he did too well. Because to me, like Thor Ragnarok was, I like it maybe as a Taika Waititi movie more than I do a Marvel movie. So I was really fearful what he would do with the Star Wars, right? I didn't want him to make it too funny, right? So we start this episode out, and there's these two stormtroopers that have the child, and they have it in a bag, and they're supposed to bring it back to Moff Gideon, and it's just this really funny banter between these two stormtroopers, and I'm laughing, but I'm like, okay, this is making me nervous because Taika Waititi's directing this episode, and big time director's gonna step in here, and he's gonna make this just all comedy, right? Well, he ends up doing a really good job because IG-11 comes in, he beats the shit out of these stormtroopers, like really tears them a new asshole. I mean, seriously, he takes the child back. Oh my god, the scene of IG-11. I think I called him IG-88 a second ago. I'm sorry, it's IG-11. So the scene of IG-11 speeding back into the town with the child in this episode is so cool. I mean, it's comedic but badass at the same time. He's taking stormtroopers down like it's incredible. Boy, I love IG-11, and IG-11 comes back in. And he kills motherfuckers, man. And so like Moff Gideon's like ready to get the hell out of there, and so anyway, so they take the child back, and I think so they're trying to get away with the child, and then they have to eventually hop on this like riverboat type thing that goes down this. Well, I can't remember exactly how this went. Oh, this is the cool part. So they go back down to the underground, right? And they're going to try to get the rest of Mandalorian's armor, right? Or I can't remember what they were doing here. Oh shit, I missed a whole part of this. I'm so sorry, everybody. So IG-11's taking down motherfuckers. I think I skipped over because I'm thinking like Moff Gideon's just trying to get out of there. No. Moff Gideon fully pretty much succeeds his plan. He ends up blowing up the spot that they were hiding out. Back up. He ends up blowing up the spot that they're hiding out in. I can't believe I forgot about this. And the flames are going through, right? Like it's a madhouse. And then the child, this is amazing, just puts his hands up and he just stops the fire from coming in, right? But Mando's still really hurt and injured, and so Cara Dune and Carl Weathers' character take the child with them, and I'm sorry, so they take the child with them, and they're out on a mission. And by the way, guys, I can't remember what point it is, but in case I missed this, there is a scene with Carl Weathers and the child, and he goes, he's like, I can't remember. I think they're up against stormtroopers at some point in this episode, and Carl Weathers looks at the child. They're like, "What do we do?" And Carl Weathers looks at the child, and he's like, "Just have the baby do the magic hands. Come on, baby, do the magic hands." It's just like coming from Carl Weathers. It was hysterical. But backing up to Mando being injured, this is the coolest thing because then we see him, have his mask taken off, and oh my gosh, just amazing. And this is so IG-11 can fix them. And by the way, speaking of Taika Waititi, IG-11 also voiced by Taika Waititi, so very fitting that he would film IG-11's final episode. And yeah, final episode, he dies. So anyway, they're going through the cave. They're back. We're back in the underground, right? I think they end up following the tunnels. Is how they get out of this place. Moff Gideon did not just pussy out, right? Like he did stick around. But anyway, so he's following through the tunnels because Mando knows where he's going at this point, right? So they go through the tunnels and holy sh! I mean, it really this stuff is really good because the Mando goes down and I think she gives him the final piece of Beskar. It's called Beskar, the armor that he wears. I finally remembered it. I knew I would. So he goes and he gets the last piece of his Beskar, right? And then the lady kind of talks about they're getting into the Mandalorian way, and this is kind of where he reveals it's a creed. And then so you get the flashback of what happened to Mando when he was a kid, which I thought was really cool, because we kind of got like little bits and pieces of this flashback throughout the entire season, but Mando was like stuck, right? This is during the Great Purge, which is like the siege on Mandalore, right? During the Clone Wars. At least I believe that's what he's referring to, unless this was supposed to be something completely different. Anyway, so we're kind of seeing what finally happened, and it turns out that a Mandalorian saved him, which is why he felt he owed his entire life to the Mandalorian way, which makes a lot of sense actually when you start to think about it. So he, so Din Djarin is just like at this point, we know a lot about him now, and then so anyway, so they end up taking this boat down this like lava river. They go back down to the tunnels, I think, and they're trying to escape. So they end up taking this boat down this lava river, and so basically they end up like going up to stormtroopers and I don't remember. This is the part that he said, "Come on, baby, do the magic hands." I mean, it might have been. I don't know. Probably it would make sense. But IG-11's like, I must do what I have to do to protect the baby, and I've been programmed to protect this child. I'm a medic droid now, so I have to protect the child, and I have to do what I can, and Mando's like, no, you'll die if you go out there. There's no way. He's like, I will self-destruct is basically what IG-11 is telling Din Djarin, right? It's like, I'll go out there and I'll self-destruct. So, at this point, you're just like really, really concerned about, IG, and it's a really sad moment because Mando's like, no, don't, you'll die, in the emotion in Pedro Pascal's voice. I loved how he delivered the lines, and then, IG-11 just gets out, and I think you even hear just, Pedro Pascal like, IG, don't, he goes out there, he self-destructs, all the stormtroopers are just like obliterated. And then we got Moff Gideon coming back down in his TIE fighter, right? And he's coming after him. And then Mando, like, hops onto the TIE fighter. I thought this was so badass. He hops onto the TIE fighter. Actually, I think he got a jetpack from the one lady back in the tunnels. I can't, so I think that's actually what happened. But either way, somehow he gets up onto the TIE fighter, and he's up on the TIE fighter, and he takes this, like, grenade, and he tries to throw one in there, blows up in the air, or falls out of his hands because Moff Gideon shakes him, and then it falls out of his hands, just kind of blows up in the air. Then he tries another one, and then he sticks it onto the TIE fighter, jumps off, and, basically the TIE fighter blows, and there goes Moff Gideon. Well, he's not dead, but we'll get to that in a second. So finally he goes back down there. They end up burying Queel, which is very, very sad, which is basically the confirmation that, yes, Queel is dead. Died trying to save that child. I mean, we had two really great characters that died in this season trying to save that child, but I think that this ending really establishes who the crew is going to be, or maybe I'm wrong about this completely, but I kind of like that we really don't know. But it seems like the crew is really going to be Din Djarin and Cara Dune, and I cannot remember Carl Weathers' name in the show to save my own life. Excuse me. That was a burp. So I apologize about that because I cannot remember his name. But so basically, that's kind of like I think they're setting up the crew, right? This is who it's going to be, and so Mando says that he's going to go out and basically try to figure out where the child had come from, initially, and maybe go back and find his ancestry, or his race, his species, which I actually think is a really cool setup for season 2 and what's to come. And he ends up, I thought it was adorable, by the way, that shot of Mando going up. Yeah, he's on the jetpack. He's going up, to the ship or whatever, and you just see the child looking down at Cara, and I think he waves at him, Cara, and Carl Weathers' character. I thought that was so sweet and so sad because he just, he liked these people, and I doubt he's seen the last of them. I doubt we've seen the last of them, right? I mean, they're going to show up back in the next season, but anyway, the final shot of the season is they show the TIE fighter. I think some Jawas walk up to it, and then you see the Darksaber just go through, and you're like, if you've seen Clone Wars and Rebels, that's your reaction, and especially Rebels. I mean, if you're a Star Wars fan, by the way, and you didn't understand the Darksaber at all, I do recommend at least going back and watching the Trials of the Darksaber episode from Rebels in Star Wars Rebels Season 3. It's on Disney Plus, guys, just like The Mandalorian is. So go back and watch that episode, and it pretty much explains everything you need to know about the Darksaber and how it relates to Mandalorians. And so if you've seen Rebels, you really don't understand how Moff Gideon got the Darksaber, and I can't wait for them to dive into that in Season 3, or Season 2, I'm sorry. And hopefully in Season 2, hopefully in Season 2, they explain to people who haven't seen Rebels and Clone Wars what the Darksaber is. But if you kind of have that knowledge, you can get that knowledge now from Rebels, what the Darksaber is and how it relates to Mandalorians and all that. But he has, anyway, so Moff Gideon has the Darksaber, and like I said, if you were privy to what the Darksaber was, it was a shock, right? I mean, this show, it's something new, but it does kind of cater to those hardcore Star Wars fans, all right? And that's the final shot, is him with the Darksaber, and I actually find that to be one incredible shot, and that is where the season ends. So, overall, Mandalorian Season 1 is great. There's some repetitive things about it, but it's fresh, it's new. It's not perfect. I don't think any of the new Star Wars content has been, and it's got kinks to work out. But I think that the potential that a series like this has is better than the potential that than the continuation of the Skywalker saga had, I think. And this has the potential to have a lot of longevity to it, in my opinion, and to really please fans. So in that aspect, I think that this is some of the best Star Wars we've had in a while, because it was so fresh. So from that perspective, it's some of the best, even with the problems and all. But it's the potential that it opens up. Will Season 2 live up? I don't know, but I really enjoyed this season, and I cannot wait to see what happens next. I mean, I'm sure that nobody can, but this was really one incredible season of TV here, and in just 8 episodes, they did a good job. And I was really impressed with Taika Waititi and what he did with the finale. The finale was great, but I still think that Deborah Chow's 2 episodes that she did are my favorite, and I think that she was the best director working on the show. Or she definitely added the most in terms of her direction. But Taika did a great job. I loved Rick Famuyiwa, and then Filoni tried. And he had a really good pilot. I just don't know what happened there in the 5th episode, which it just did not feel like, I don't know, maybe we're going to come back around to that and eventually it's going to become relevant. I just don't want to see the guy that was, hey Mando, throughout the second season, because that got annoying really quick. But anyway, guys, I want to announce something here. So me and somebody that I'm not ready to announce yet are starting next week, hopefully on Wednesday next week, are going to be reviewing all of the Star Wars movies. It's going to be in-depth discussions like this, and we're going to start from episode 1 of The Phantom Menace and go through week by week a new episode of the Skywalker saga, and hopefully we'll eventually get through the entirety of the Skywalker saga. So I wanted to make sure I announce that here. It should be starting next week. If not, we'll have it the week after, okay? But yeah, just get ready for the episode 1 Phantom Menace spoiler review. I know you guys are probably nervous because I said that we were going to do a Kingsman review, never got around to it yet, but trust me, I am always willing to talk some Star Wars. If there's one thing that I can talk about on the show all the time, it's definitely Star Wars. I won't all the time because, that would just not be exciting for everybody who watches, and I want the show to be accessible for entertainment fans of all types, and people of all types, right? But Star Wars is for everybody. I truly believe that, and it's my favorite franchise in the entire world, and it's the fandom that I feel like I belong to. So and it's something that I know that for myself I'm definitely well versed and well knowledged in, and I'm excited to have my guest on to talk about it with, to maybe teach the guests some things about this that I didn't know, and also to hear like different perspectives on the films that I've never really thought of before, because I love hearing. If there's one thing I love about Star Wars more than talking about it, it's hearing about it and hearing different perspectives on it. And so I think it's going to be really exciting to have a guest next week on here to talk about their perspective on Star Wars movies, and so I think it's going to be pretty cool to talk about episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Now, of course, I've done a review on this on the channel back when I was doing reviews by Dom, but I never actually got around to doing a full-blown spoiler discussion on it, kind of like we did here with The Mandalorian Season 1. And I want to make sure that we, kind of launched with The Mandalorian Season 1 review, because Season 2 is coming out here pretty quick, so I wanted to make sure that we got this out of the way first, and then we can just worry about doing the Skywalker saga. Then when Season 2's over, maybe it'll be he and I, or just me, that does a full-on discussion of that. So I'll make sure that gets fit into. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for joining. This has been another episode of Dom's Corner. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel as always, and leave some feedback in the comment section. I appreciate that a lot. I'll also be leaving my Twitter and Instagram in the description below, so be sure to follow me there. This has been another episode of Dom's Corner. I've been Dom Martino, and I will see you guys on Saturday.